Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Tuesday, February 26, 2013. I'm Darko. This is part 5, the final part for today. Alright, my website is ggnonline.com and on YouTube, ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. Alright, I'm going to cover eugenics in this last video, social engineering. 8 million Brits could live beyond 100 as experts raise doubts about our ability to cope with aging population. So not only is there too many people and not enough jobs, like I said, by design, but now the people, they're living too long. Experts warn Lord's inquiry that not enough is being done to cope with aging population. In other words, we need to get those numbers down. Older people receive worse NHS treatment than younger patients, and that's of course on purpose, where they just let them die out. So it says half of babies born since 2003 expected to live to 103. What bullshit is that? Wow. I've already showed statistics and stuff like that to counter that argument. Britain is worryingly underprepared for a dramatically aging population, with 8 million people expected to live more than 100. So, and these people that will live past 100 will most likely be people that are going to be already in debt and are going to take on more debt for medical and health bills. An inquiry into government plans to cope with more than over 65s has been warned by a string of experts about the scale of the challenge and shortcomings of the UK's ability to react. Well, the reaction is going to be to let you die. That's the plan. Here's their little chart. One of the things we did was some simple modeling. Says that there will be 127 million people who are going to make it to 100 throughout the EU. And of course, we have what? We're right about here, down here in 2015 and that 2010. And they're saying it's just going to blow up after basically 2020 to 2030, where there's some people that think that by 2050 the population is actually going to start going down. But, you know, it's the hockey stick chart and graph, and it makes it look really, really scary. So, former Obama Treasury Department advisor advocates death panels on Sunday's talk show from the 26th of February. It says here that liberals screamed when Sarah Palin warned about death panels during the run-up to the passage of Obamacare, but many really want health care rationing based on invidious methods of medical discrimination. It says, watching This Week with George Stephanopoulos and Steve Ratner, former advisor to Obama Treasury Department, has written in favor of death panels, alluded to them again. So this former advisor said, right now most Americans do not see price in deciding whether to use health care. When they go on Medicare, they really don't see price. They tend to consume more than they otherwise would. So it says here 26% of all Medicare spending is last year of life. So it basically goes on and he says it could be a waste. These are really tough moral questions for the country, but we are going to have to deal with them. So it says Kimberly Strassel of the Wall Street Journal caught the reference. There's Stephen Ratner this week. What are you getting to, though, is a fundamental question. Says, are you going to let consumers make these choices about end-of-life decisions, or are you going to have Medicare make a decision about what procedures you can have and how much they can or will pay, and the government makes those choices? That's the moral question. Alas, this discussion moved away from the moral question. But be clear, Ratner and many, I might say, that liberals want government making these decisions, and once it does, people will be denied treatment based on these categories: age, disability, quality of life, etc. And yes, single payer equals healthcare rationing. So it goes on here, and he wrote in the following piece that appeared in September 2012 in the New York Times: no one wants to lose an aging parent, and with price out of the equation, it's natural for patients and their families to try every treatment regardless of expense. And it says here, but that imposes an enormous societal cost that few other nations have been willing to bear. Many countries whose healthcare systems are regularly extolled, including Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, have systems for rationing care. So we got to be like them, see? Take Britain, which provides universal coverage with spending at proportionally almost half of American levels. Its National Institute for Health uses a complex quality adjusted life year system to put an explicit value of up to $48,000 per year on a treatment's ability to extend life. So it goes on here and it says that this independent Payment Advisory Board should be allowed to offer changes in services and costs. We may shrink from such stomach-wrenching choices, but they are inescapable. Finishing up here, that's the cost of centralized healthcare, in which decisions are often political, as we have seen out of the NHS system in the UK. So it's about political and financial and not moral. For example, some cancer patients in the UK are denied life-extending treatment, but 42-year-old women can get free but expensive in vitro fertilization treatment to overcome their difficulties conceiving, which is not an illness, but a natural part of the aging process. It's kind of like abortions in that, where they call it reproductive health. Mother's heartbreak as her baby dies from pneumonia after a private GP receptionist tells her that she wants or has to wait in line. Originally diagnosed with a viral infection and died at just 7 weeks old after pneumonia was undetected. I guess the mother told of her devastation after her baby died after being sent home by doctors several times. So this is progress, guys. It's always nice and fancy buildings, and it looks like cutting edge and the future, and this is great, man. That they already presented the doctor with symptoms, refusing to feed and all this other stuff, and wasn't expecting him to diagnose my son. He didn't give any instructions as to what change should mean or any advice as to how to manage the symptoms. On the next day, the Friday, the child continued to be unwell, but the mother felt reassured because she had seen a doctor. See, progress. She saw a doctor, a drug dealer, so everything's fine. Trust him. On the Saturday, she decided he needed to be seen again. So they went out, and she said, I had allowed myself to be reassured, but my gut feeling was starting to take over. Don't do that. That's not very scientific. Can't prove what a gut feeling is. So basically, she was standing in line. There were 6 people in front. So she went up in tears asking, as her child was going into cardiac arrest, she explained that there were still 3 people in front of me, so I sat down again. An off-duty nurse was looking at him and said, you need to go through straight away. She started running, shouting for a nurse, and it says here, soon after that, they took the baby, and it says here the doctors were fighting and scrambling to fix it. But it says that they knew that the battle had already been lost. Recognizing population control in Ethiopia. The African nation of Ethiopia has a Christian history, dates back to the New Testament. It goes on here, about 63% of Ethiopians are Christians, the majority of whom belong to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So I see here, the country has a population of over 84 million people, which makes the Eastern African nation the 14th largest country in the world. By way of contrast, the state of California has a population of just over 38 million. So 84 million to 38 million. But Ethiopia has plenty of room. They have a population density of 79 people per square kilometer compared to 260 people per square kilometer in the much richer United Kingdom. This fact is often overlooked by those who look at Africa and see only too many people and view babies as obstacles to progress. With the 13th highest fertility rate in the world, bad Ethiopians, have an average of 5.3 children per woman, making the nation a prime target of Western population controllers. The new barbarians, however, are very sophisticated and claim not to be bound by the moral restrictions of the past. Science, right? Since population control fell out of favor decades ago, they now wage the same war against the people of developing nations with the falsely inspiring language of reproductive justice, maternal health, and safe motherhood. Yet their methods are exactly the same: abortions, contraception, euthanasia, basically any means of eliminating the unwanted. So here's a trippy story. There's actually a video that someone sent me a link to. Thank you, appreciate that. I don't know what it means, but hey, I'll put it out there. You have this woman that went missing, right? Elisa Lam Death, body of missing Canadian tourist found in LA hotel water tank, police say. The woman's body found wedged in a water tank on the roof of a downtown Los Angeles hotel was identified as a missing Canadian tourist. Her name was Elisa Lam. So most of you have probably already seen this connection. Thousands may have been exposed to deadly TB epidemic downtown. The feds are descending on downtown LA to combat a dangerous outbreak of drug-resistant strain of tuberculosis. So here's where the trippy part is. Lam antigen testing, an effective rule and test for TB HIV co-infection. So they may not just have TB, they may actually have HIV. And what if it all ties back to this poor woman that was, her body was like decomposing in this water tank. So God only knows how long it was in there. But this is all in LA. So, but it goes down there and it uses this certain type of equipment to diagnose this TB. And when you go down in there, it actually has a name for it, and it's called LAM. So it's an antigen test. It's proved a very useful diagnostic tool for the detection of TB in those co-infected with HIV. It's actually called Elisa-based LAM. And the great thing about being a Canadian tourist is that you can kind of just make a name up if you really want to, you know? Okay, so next up we have men say their breast cancer was caused by contaminated water at Camp Lejeune. It's so rare that for every 100 women who get it, breast cancer, just one man will. The entire time my mother was pregnant with me, we were drinking high levels of this tetrachloroethylene, this trichloroethyl, and benzene in our water. They believe the chemicals cause the cancer. Next up, we have China acknowledges cancer villages. The Environment Ministry appears to have acknowledged the existence of so-called cancer villages after years of public speculation about the impact of pollution in certain areas. The term cancer village has no technical definition. It says such chemicals obviously could pose long-term risk to human health. The so-called cancer villages could help people sleep better at night. It says that the widespread production and consumption of harmful chemicals forbidden in many developed nations are still found in China, which means they're in the products that China produce. So they are in developed nations, quote, developed nations, nations of progress. Oceana study reveals seafood fraud nationwide, conducted one of the largest investigations in the world, collecting more than whatever samples. So it basically went on here and it said that 33% of the 1,200 samples analyzed nationwide were mislabeled, according to the FDA. The most common fish types sold as snapper and tuna had the highest mislabeling rates, 87 to 59%. Think if you got fish coming out of Japan, right? U.S. dairy industry petitions FDA to approve as aspartame as hidden unlabeled additive in milk, yogurt, eggnog, and cream. It says the International Dairy Foods Association and the National Milk Producers Federation have filed a petition with the FDA asking the FDA to alter the definition of milk to secretly include chemical sweeteners such as aspartame and sucralose, kind of like the corn producers and that for high fructose corn syrup. So much just like GMO, and if you're trying to avoid aspartame, you'll have no way of doing so because it won't be listed on the label. The new meat scandal is donkey meat found in South Africa burgers. But the good upside is that there's no horse meat in them. The university found that 99 of the 139 samples contained species not declared in the product label. Study's co-author says the commonplace of mislabeling poses economic, religious, ethical, and health impacts. Right now, Mexican farmers are protesting the entrance of genetically modified corn. Thousands across Mexico demand their government reject permits for GMO corn, while Monsanto defends their patent on life in U.S. Supreme Court. This is from March of 2011. Mexico approves GM maize pilot project. So a couple of years ago, the Agricultural Ministry said it had approved the project to grow GM yellow corn developed by the U.S. biotech giant Monsanto. Parents, I'm going to leave off here, guys. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.